Okay, with anti-COVID measure protests breaking out in other major cities and in places like Alberta on the highway, what is the federal government doing to bring down the temperature? Omar Alghabra is the Minister of Transport. He's in Mississauga. Minister Alghabra, welcome back to the show.
David, it's good to be back with you.
So, Minister, these protests in Ottawa now into day 8, and more trucks and protesters are on their way to other major cities across the country. I mean, what is your government doing to get a handle on this situation?
Well, David, we are in regular conversations with the city of Ottawa and with law enforcement agencies. As you know, this is an issue of law enforcement, so we depend on the expertise and the professionalism of the various law enforcement agencies. But as a government, we continue to offer support. As you know, Minister Mendicino today accepted or supported the request by the City of Ottawa to provide more support from the RCMP. So the RCMP has already been providing support, and now they're increasing the amount of support that they're providing.
But, you know, it's Ottawa, Toronto, Quebec City, Winnipeg, the border crossing at Coutts, Alberta. I mean, how bad could this get? How worried are you that how widespread this could become?
Look, let me just say that in Canada, in a democratic society, in a civilized society, we should always respect the rights of our citizens to protest. And it is part of our history and will continue to be part of who we are. First, I hope that protests are peaceful and respectful. Second, I think, these protesters have made their point. They are against all public health mandates. And I think many Canadians are sympathetic to the idea that we're all frustrated by COVID. But it's time for those protesters to go home, to engage their elected officials, MPs, MLAs, MPPs, and advocate for policies that they care about. We are still in a pandemic. And while I do understand that people are frustrated, I am personally frustrated too. But we still have capacities at our hospitals that are overwhelmed. We're still having thousands of surgeries that are being canceled because of the nature of our capacity at hospitals. We have our frontline healthcare workers overwhelmed. We have all kinds of realities that we still have to deal with. And as a federal government, and I know the same applies to provincial governments, we all have to do our best to manage this pandemic. It's not going to manage itself. We need to be focused on managing the pandemic. I understand people are frustrated, and we want to hear all points of view. And I ask that they all engage with their elected officials. But occupying downtown, Ottawa downtown, or other cities is not going to advance their cause, and it's going to cause all kinds of disruptions that are unnecessary and unaccepted.
But Minister, you've said repeatedly they've made their point. It's time to go home. They're not going to do that, right? I mean, they made that very clear yesterday. They have this demand that all health mandates at every level in the country gets lifted. So if you're not going to meet with them, and if you're not going to meet their demands, and they say they're not leaving, and they are well financed and well funded, how does this end short of an escalation in the aggression of the police action here in the city?
David, their demands are quite unreasonable, right? Their demands is to overthrow an elected government. Their demands is to drop all public health measures across the entire country, which is, everybody understands, is unreasonable. So, look, we will do as a government whatever is necessary, but I will depend, and as a government, we will rely on the expert and the professionalism and the enforcement of our law enforcement agencies, including the local police authorities that have their jurisdiction for this.
There's been a lot of criticism, here from residents about policing. And the police chief this week spoke about a significant element from the U.S. That has been involved in the funding, the organizing, and the demonstrating of this. What does your government know about this? And how concerned are you about foreign money coming in through a tech company like GoFundMe to finance these activities?
David, I'm not going to speculate about reports that are not have not been verified to me. I could tell you, regardless of who is funding these protesters, I think it's really time for them to go home. The people of Ottawa deserve to get back to their lives. The businesses in Ottawa deserve to get back to their businesses. It's just their point is made. Everybody heard them. They saw what they're all about. They should really go home.
But, we have this situation, Minister, where the police here in the city, who you said this is a policing matter, they're kind of allowing these people to largely operate unimpeded. I mean, they're dragging gasoline cans into the downtown. Are you concerned that essentially this hands-off kind of approach has been taken to the entrenched group of protesters that is right here on the doorsteps of Parliament Hill and a whole bunch of government buildings?
David, as you know, I'm going to be respectful of the clear lines of demarcation between politics and law enforcement. It is not advisable for any politician to direct police or to comment on police operations. So I will defer to the professionalism of our law enforcement agencies to do their job.
I appreciate that you don't want to be seen as a politician directing police. And this is largely a police matter here on the ground, but this is also a very political issue, sir. And the federal government is not meeting, and you're kind of hands off in terms of the day-to-day management of this. And now there are other protests headed towards other cities. I mean, are you worried that people are going to see the government is largely absent from this particular issue in terms of trying to bring it to a resolution?
Let me just say that I've heard from many people, not only Ottawa residents, but across the country, who are incredibly frustrated with this protest and the impact that this protest is having on the lives of people, and also the way these protesters are going about their protest. It is really time for protesters to go home. And I can assure you that our government is engaged with our law enforcement agencies, is in regular conversation with offering whatever support is needed. But I will leave, as I said, the operation, because this is how we do things in a democracy, leave the operation of law enforcement agencies to the specialists.
Okay, one last point to touch on before I let you go. You do have an aid program at the federal level for businesses that are under public health order lockdowns. There is no aid program that deals with a situation like this. And you have businesses in the downtown core. The Rideau Center, for example, the major shopping center, its closure for a week is apparently at a cost of $20 million. Is there any kind of financial aid being considered or available for businesses affected for this kind of a lockdown, where it's essentially a public safety issue for them rather than a public health order?
So our government will always be at the table whenever the city or the province comes to us with an ask. We will always examine their request and offer the support that we can. So this is a hypothetical question for now, but I just wanted to assure you and assure your viewers that our federal government, as we have demonstrated in the past, will always be effective partners with the province and the municipality.
Okay. Minister Alghabra, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, David.